at the stars, look how they shine for you, and everything you do. Yeah, they were all yellow. I came along, I wrote a song for you, and all the things you do. And it was called Yellow.
Our group, consisting of Michelle Schallenberger, Allison Hamilton, Jennifer Evans, and Corbin Foltz, will be presenting The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. You can find this piece on page 140 in the Understanding Literature textbook.
The narrator of the story, The Yellow Wallpaper, is Jane. She is a new mother and a wife of an admired doctor. She and her family are staying at a summer home while their house is being renovated. Here, she is constantly left alone in a room that leads to her growing insanity, because the yellow wallpaper in this room, along with her husband's strict rules, are the major reasons causing her illness to progress.
Her husband John tries to take care of Jane throughout her illness. However, his methods create more problems than solutions. He does show that he loves her, but because of the 19th century medical beliefs and his own beliefs of male dominance, he traps his wife in an unhealthy environment, despite her protests.
Jenny is John's sister and is in the house as a housekeeper for the summer. She's also in charge of watching over Jane while John is away on business. Jenny personifies the ideal 19th century woman. She cooks, she cleans, and she takes good care of the family. This aspect of her frustrates Jane, who in her condition is not allowed to fulfill the role she believes she should.
The nanny's name is Mary. She takes care of John and Jane's baby since Jane is forbidden to undertake this extra stress during her illness. Mary's only concern is the child, and while this comforts Jane, Jane feels inferior being unable to take care of her own child. The woman in the wallpaper is a figment of Jane's imagination. She plays a large symbolic role in the play that emphasizes Jane's inner feelings of entrapment. She is constantly noted as trying to break through the bars that keep her imprisoned in the wallpaper. By the end of the story, the woman in the wallpaper breaks free of her confinement and becomes one with Jane.
Over the summer, while Jane and John's house was being renovated, they rented a colonial mansion, but Jane felt there was something creepy about it. She liked most of the inside of the house and wanted a room downstairs which had roses on the window. But John said they would take a room upstairs because it has more sunlight, which she needs because she is ill. John, who is a physician, says that there is nothing physically wrong with her, but that she needs rest because she has slight nervous depression. Because of her condition, she is not supposed to work or write, but she goes against their will to write this story. Their bedroom used to be a nursery, but there was a bed bolted to the floor in there, so they decided it would be the bedroom where she could rest. The one peculiar thing about the room was the awkward yellow wallpaper, which had been slightly torn away from the wall by the children that lived there before. At first, she was disgusted by it, but soon it became her obsession. She started to see changing patterns in it that turned into bars that imprisoned a woman. She even saw the same woman outside every window she looked. Jane kept this obsession a secret until the day before they were leaving the house. Finally, she let the insanity get the best of her, and she tried to let the woman out and hold her with a rope. But she became the woman and crept around the room with a rope around her and her shoulder against the wall.
To find this next quote, you can look at page 140 toward the bottom.
I did write for a while, in spite of them, but it does exhaust me a good deal, having to be so sly about it, or else I meet with heavy opposition.
Jen will be presenting the history of Charlotte Perkins Gilman's life.
The author of The Yellow Wallpaper was Charlotte Gilman Perkins. At the age of 26, Charlotte Perkins Stetson, as she was known at that time, had a severe case of depression. She was referred to Dr. S. Wyer Mitchell, whose treatment was forced inactivity. This caused Perkins' condition to worsen, and she had a nervous breakdown. At one point, she was even reduced to crawling into closets and under beds, clutching a rag doll. Soon after, she decided to abandon Mitchell's rest cure, and her condition greatly improved. After this ordeal, Gilman abandoned her husband and child and started her career as a journalist, lecturer, and publisher. She used these personal experiences in the writing of The Yellow Wallpaper. Whereas today, writing The Yellow Wallpaper is what Gilman is most known for, back in her time, she was known as both a crusading journalist and as a feminist intellectual. Gilman was concerned with political inequality and social justice in general, but the primary focus of her writing was the unequal status of women within the institution of marriage. Gilman also shows in her writing how creative women were stifled by a paternalistic culture, showing the struggle of women journalists. The unequal status of women and the struggle of women as journalists are both themes that show up often in The Yellow Wallpaper. The background and history of the author Charlotte Gilman Perkins greatly influenced the writing, especially in the case of the story, The Yellow Wallpaper.
This next quote can be found on page 140 towards the bottom.
I sometimes fancy that in my condition, if I had less oppression and more society and stimulus, but John says the very worst thing I can do is think about my condition. And I confess it always makes me feel bad, so I will let it alone and talk about the house.
Corwin will be presenting how the author's social activism influenced her writing of The Yellow Wallpaper.
Throughout her lifetime, Charlotte Perkins Gilman simply thought of herself as a humanist. She was a voice for women's rights, sharing her opinions on issues through her poetry, novels, lectures, and essays. She expressed her views in order to change the social acceptance of what a woman should be. Gilman was a model for the issues that she spoke on. She believed that the working woman had a place in society, as well as a place in the democratic process. Because she was an advocate for women's suffrage, her personal experience served as inspiration for her writing. She wrote The Yellow Wallpaper in 1887, which she loosely based on her battle with a nervous disorder, neurasthenia, 2 years prior. The main character and narrator, Jane, suffers from a similar disorder in the short story. However, Gilman overcame her struggles with the disorder and remained progressive in her writing and speaking in the years to follow. However, in 1932, she became diagnosed with incurable breast cancer. Gilman took her own life at the age of 75. Her independent nature and revolutionary thoughts on change for women's rights has made her an iconic figure in the feminist movement and for women everywhere.